listeners, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Out of the Box. Morals, ethics, values have always been a matter of uttermost importance. And they are today, and most probably will be until the end of time. Our figure today is Immanuel Kant, and he is a German philosopher who lived in the 18th century. Immanuel Kant dealt and talked extensively about ethics and values and their importance. To shed more light on this, I'm really delighted to be accompanied by Ahmad Barsoum, who is a very prominent writer and thinker. Ahmad, hello and welcome to the program.
Hello, Mohammed, and again, thank you so much for your very kind invitation, as usual, to share with you some of your knowledge and discuss together one of the greatest philosophers and thinkers of all time, Immanuel Kant. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine. And to start off, do you think that Immanuel Kant was a man of his time? He lived in the 18th century. Germany. 18th century was a time of a lot of controversy on the political side, on the philosophical side, on the also again on the industrial side, on the scientific side. So you had back-to-back eras of Renaissance, Enlightenment, Industrial Revolution, and so on. So do you think that he was a man of his time, or was he taking an extra mile? How do you perceive him? How do you see him?
First, before I answer the question, I would like to put a statement down here that any philosopher or thinker is not a man of his time, is a man from the future. And also, at the same time, they are all men for all seasons. And I'm saying this because whatever a philosopher would come up with usually is not the discussion of his time, is not the narrative of his time. So whatever philosophers think about and explain to the public or put in theories or write in books is always ahead of their time. So definitely Immanuel Kant, as one of the greatest philosophers of all time, he was not from his time, he was from the future. So that's something that we have to agree on for all philosophers in general.
So you definitely see that he was living in the future. He was taking a step ahead.
Not only that, actually, because even just to shed some light on Immanuel Kant, he came from a very religious family. And coming from a religious family at that time and describing his ideas and theories about moralities, ethics versus religion and belief was very unique at that time. And how could you get such ideas from someone who was brought up in a very religious family? So definitely, again, he is ahead of his time by far.
So actually, all progressive thinkers like Immanuel Kant, and he's definitely a progressive thinker compared to his time, many of them grew in a very classic extremist backgrounds, or settings. Many of them did that. And he talks about morals and values and ethics, and we'll delve deeper into these in a minute. But do you think that, ethics and values and morals, they were talked about since the time of ancient philosophy, Socrates, Plato, and so on and so forth, and even before that, in ancient Persia, ancient Egypt, ancient China, ancient India, and so on. So what's new? What's new for Immanuel Kant? Again, briefly, we'll dissect it later on, but just very briefly, what is his major input and innovation?
His main idea was how the ethics and principles are driving our motive to reach a certain reason. So in other ways, it's a 3 stages theory that we have an ethic or moral thinking, then we are doing an act or doing something, and then at the end there will be a result or a reason for this moral thinking in the beginning. So this is something that he did was new to in the level of morality and ethics in philosophy. So he wanted to say that there is no good motive without a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Motive has to originate from, reason has to originate from a motive or moral thinking, first of all.
Okay.
And that's what he came new. He just, as if he made some kind of new anatomy to the theory of morality and ethics and put an end to it, as if it's going through a way and as an idea and then has to come to an action, end to an action. That's what he did, mainly.
So, we briefly talked before about someone like Niccolo Machiavelli. And Niccolo Machiavelli is the notorious Machiavelli, according to some people. And he talked about the end justifies the means.
Yes.
And so again, Immanuel Kant is also dealing with the means and the end. Do you think that they stand at the opposite extremes of the spectrum, or do they have anything in common?
Actually, it is not an opposite, it's a parallel thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because according to Machiavelli, the end justifies the mean. That means that you can do anything through your journey to reach this end. So it could be unethical, anything without morality, with morality, whatever. It does not describe the mean. It could be anything. However, Kant, he said it clearly, it has to be a very good ethical and moral motive to reach this end, or to have a reason at the end. So they are going both ways, parallel, because it starts with an idea and then there's an action and then is an end. However, one uses all the tools possible, one uses only ethical and moral means.
So they're not in two, ends, so there's no paradox.
I see them going parallel, but with different visions, different perceptions.
So again, as parallel, they will never meet. So they're entirely two, they are sort of parallel dimensions or parallel paradigms, but they will never meet.
The reason why they are parallel and will never meet because Machiavelli was so brutal in his theory of the end justified the mean, his famous quotation, because we don't know what are these means that could be used to reach this end in someone's mind, in the ruler's mind, in the king's mind, in the wherever the end will be. But we know that for Kant, it's known. We know the end at the end, or the reason for after the journey is a good cause. It's something that makes someone's conscience and soul calm down and reach the nirvana, if we can say that. It's the maximum or the climax of good feeling. So, but at the end, on the other side, Machiavelli, no, it could be a very dangerous road filled with conspiracies, killings, and bloodshed, and you never know. And then at the end, to become a tyrant.
Yeah, so no matter what atrocities you commit, as long as the end is a good cause or is for the good, then these atrocities and indignities are always fine. Like there's no problem with them.
Absolutely. Kant is dealing only with the bright side of life, while Machiavelli is dealing with all the colors and spectrums of life.
Okay, so they're sort of like the yin and the yang.
Well, yes, one of them is yin, one of the yang. Yes, of course. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's stop with our dear viewers for a few minutes with a report about the basic and most important ideas of Immanuel Kant, because definitely if we want to fully talk about Immanuel Kant and summarize it, it will take days. So let's stop with this short report and we'll be right back. Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher who lived in the 18th century and whose comprehensive and systematic work in the theory of knowledge and in ethics greatly influenced all subsequent philosophy. Kant developed his moral philosophy in 3 works:
groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, critique of practical reason, and metaphysics of morals. Trying to very briefly and simply summarize his ideas, we can say that Kant argues that a person is good or bad depending on the motivation of his actions and not on the goodness of the consequences of those actions. Kant argues that one can have moral worth or be a good person only if one is motivated by morality. In other words, if a person's emotions or desires cause them to do something, then that action cannot give them moral worth. To further explain his logic, let's imagine that someone won the lottery and was wondering what to do with the money. Then he decided that what would be really fun is to give the money to charity and to enjoy that special feeling one gets from making people happy. So he gave all his lottery money away. According to Kant, this man is not a morally worthy person, since his motivation was having fun, and there is nothing admirable about such a selfish pursuit. According to Kant, moral worth only comes when you do something because you know that it is your duty, and you would do it regardless of whether you liked it or not. Let's go back to the example of the lottery winner who gave all his lottery money to charity. Imagine this time that he gives to a charity, and his intention this time was not to have fun, but rather to save hundreds of starving children in a remote village. Now, even if for any reason out of his hands, the food doesn't arrive to the starving children, since the intended consequence of feeding starving children was good, and the actual consequences were bad, this man's actions would still be morally worthy because of his good intentions, regardless of the consequences. Kant is claiming that regardless of intended or actual consequences, moral worth is properly assessed by looking at the motivation of the action being selfish or not, even if the intended consequences are good. According to Kant, a good person is someone who always does their duty because it is their duty. It is fine if they enjoy doing it, but it must be the case that they would do it even if they do not enjoy it. The overall theme, according to Kant, is that to be a good person, you must be good for goodness sake.
Dear viewers, welcome back. So after watching this short report, and I have to say it's short, although it might be long in minutes, but actually it's really a very short report that would summarize the very, very important ideas of Immanuel Kant. So, Ahmad, some people perceive Kant as the father of secularism. To what extent do you agree with this statement?
Well, this is not necessarily to be absolutely true about being the father of secularism, because there are so many writers, philosophers, and thinkers have preceded him in that. And even if we talk about the same era, we'll have all the poets and the writers and novelists at that time. They can be categorized as secular thinkers and secular philosophers as well. So, but he what he did is different in a different way. He wanted to discuss, or he already discussed, how you could create good morals and ethics without a religious impact.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his main focus. He was trying to say that a human being can possess lots of ethics and principles and morals without having a religious base. So it comes from the man himself. It does not come from just a religious book or from a preacher who would give a preach in any religious building or whatever congregation. It's just coming from deep inside the human beings. It is solely created and developed by the human being. That's what he was trying to give us as indication that we do not need religion to be good.
Okay.
But he was bound a little bit by some constraints at that time because of his family. As we said, it was a very religious family, and he didn't want to have any confrontation with the church at the time because of his position as a professor as well. He was a teacher, teaching in university or institutes. So he wanted to deliver the message without attacking the church at that time. But
so, like the flip of that, or like the counter argument here would be, if I want to refute what he just said, I can tell you, well, what he's saying is exactly what religion says. So he says, do to people what you would love them to do unto you, or like, so what's new there? So he said, like, if you would accept, like, look at your action. If you think that you would like people to do the same towards you, then your action is absolutely moral or ethical. So what's new there? What is, like, he's just copying from antiquity or from ancient texts.
Well, no, actually, I see him as the one who originated the idea of being good for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. This came from him himself. He said it. So be good for goodness sake. It does not have to be driven by a text in a religious book or an ancient book. So all religions, without any exception, have told its followers, you have to be good because the God or the prophet or whoever, the messenger of this religion told us to do so on behalf of the God, no matter what God is. So we were talking in the Abrahamic religions or any other religion, same theory that there was a God that delivered a message through a person or group of people to follow ethics, to follow rules, to follow principles in order to be rewarded after that in the afterlife. So that's what all religions agree on. But here with Kant, he said that a man himself can be very ethical and have principles without this text that came from a philosopher, from a messenger, or was taught to us in schools when we were young or even when we grow up. So he actually referred to the human mind as the only source of principles, ethics, and morals. And by the way, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, I'm sorry. No.
And I know that what you have in mind when you said in ancient history, when you said ancient philosophers. So even philosophers who were not religious at that a long time ago, they said it. They said that Aristotle said it, and Plato, all of them, they discussed ethics and principles as originated from man himself, as a way that what distinguish us between other creatures. We, the Homo sapiens, what made us as human beings is our mind, our way of thinking, our rational, our logic. And accompanying this logic and rational thinking is morals, ethics, and principles.
So, talking of rationale and so on, the eternal question of the chicken or the egg. So, was it the antiquity that copied religion, or was it religion that copied antiquity? Because people would say, okay, the ancient Egyptian or the ancient Mesopotamian or the ancient Chinese or Indian, Aztec, Inca, etc., these civilizations preceded the Ten Commandments of Moses and so on, but a religious person will tell you that's not when religion started. The very first prophet was Adam himself. So Adam was before all those people. So maybe they copied it. Because Immanuel Kant basically says that the most important thing is your intention. And you can find a lot of religious texts in the Bible, the Quran, in the Gita, in many other religious texts around the world that says exactly the same thing. That God just cares about your intention. God does not judge the outcome if the intention was good. Like, as long as you intended, a good outcome, you did everything in your capacity to make it happen. But if for something, out of your hands, the outcome was a very negative one, you will not be penalized for that. So again, chicken or the egg. How do you perceive this, chicken or the egg?
Okay, let's go back a little bit in time. You just said it, the Mesopotamian or the ancient Egyptian, or the Chinese, all these civilizations, they had put basis for ethics. But let's focus on one particular religion, or the beginning of religious ideologies, the ancient Egyptians. According to James Henry Breasted, American Jewish Egyptologist, he was considered one of the best Egyptologists in history so far. He spent long years, 7 years almost, just living in Egypt, studying its history. And the result of his stay and research in Egypt, he came up with the famous book, it, of course, you told it.
The Dawn of Conscience. Yeah.
The Dawn of Conscience, yes.
Exactly.
And simply, this book tells us that the human conscience was created and born by the Egyptian civilization.
Mm-hmm.
The ancient Egyptians, they gave the world the human conscience. It was their gift to the world, actually. Meaning that in order to have a decent community, to live under a very organized community with leaders and people to manage your life, with people to protect it, and have schools, hospitals, and have agriculture and industry, whatever, you need, first of all, ethics. And that's what the ancient Egyptians have given to the world. So this is one side. On the other side, you mentioned that Adam as a first prophet. Did we receive any texts from Adam? I don't think so. All what we received were texts in the context of the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran, as those are the Abrahamic religions, and they discussed the same concept. And if we look back into history, in a timeline of history, you will find out that all what came by the ancient Egyptians in their traditions and their religion and in their ideologies have started way before the Bible or the Torah or the Quran were written.
Again, the counter argument would tell you that Adam was before all these and he had his texts, but they were lost in time, or maybe just.
But we still have the texts from the ancient Egyptians.
We do. Like, they were well preserved on papyri and like
anyone
techniques.
Anyone who go online and search for the Book of Dead and its text, and you'll see that the 10 Commandments were there, but they were more than 10 actually.
Yes, absolutely.
But Hebrews used only 10.
Exactly.
Left Egypt. So because some of these commandments actually, they do not work outside Egypt for that time. So I know this is a little bit out of our way of discussion here about Kant and philosophy, but we have to state that even the commandments of the ancient Egyptians exceeded the commandments we know now, and they were much better as well in many ways. One of them is do not hurt an animal. They have reached this level of humanity even before the modern European concept of animal rights and the humanitarian actions against the abuse of animals. We're talking about 5,000 years ago, not just 10, 50 years when Europeans and Westerns started to talk about animal rights. So this is where the civilization started. This is where the ethics started and the moral started.
Yeah, and in the Book of the Dead, like you have to make some positive and some negative confessions before you are entered into the afterlife or into the dawn of the new life. You have to, like, one of the confessions is that I did not stop the flow of any water. I did not
Yes,
hurt an animal.
yes.
I did not pollute water.
I,
Um,
actually, I did not pollute the river Nile or the river.
exactly,
Even
and
the Nile, that, yeah.
I did not
You were
slander a
specific.
man. I did not
Yeah.
slander a man. I was not an eavesdropper, and much more detailed.
I did not cut a tree.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
But going back again to Immanuel Kant,
so
and actually not going very far away though, although we're back to Immanuel Kant, but they're all very much connected. So someone will tell you, okay, Immanuel Kant talks about these morals and ethics, and so does religion, and so did James Henry Breasted, and so on and so forth. So, for example, James Henry Breasted, he talked about this before World War II.
yeah.
His writings were induced by the major atrocities and that happened in the World War One. Immanuel Kant wrote before that. Ancient religions wrote before these. Major butchery and slaughters that happened during the Middle Ages and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, what good is this? Nothing stopped World War II, nothing stopped World War One, nothing stopped holy wars in the Middle Ages, nothing stopped the slavery of people from Africa, nothing stopped the butchery and the slaughter of indigenous people in North and South America and in Australia and New Zealand, etc., 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 etc. So what good is this? Is this just cheap talk, empty talk? Is this just too good to be true?
I would say yes. I was about to say the same word. It's too good to be true sometimes. So when we talk philosophy, when we talk ethics and we talk principles, these are the cream of human attributes. And to reach these levels of purity, you need to go through other stages. However, most of the people in the human race, they cannot make it till the end to become so pure, thus reproduce ethics and principles. And most of them, they stay down at the bottom. If we imagine this is like a pyramid, where the basic instinct of us of killing and for food and the invading other countries or invading other regions will help us to gain more power and so on. I don't think that by starting with this base, we can reach the pyramid, or the top of the pyramid, which is the peak of ethics and peak of morals. So, as you said, yes, it's philosophers came to us so many teachings and so many great ideas. However, unfortunately, we are very few of us who could reach that level of wisdom and principles and ethics.
Of course, the big dilemma or the big problem here is like we talk about the Maslow pyramid, which this is what humans strive for, but at the top of the pyramid, of course, the base is always wider. Self-actualization and feeling your self-worth comes at the very top of the pyramid, which is always the minority of people. Unfortunately, not a lot of people get to do
The
this.
fourth and fifth are very hard to attain.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, again, back to Immanuel Kant, he says that he sort of refutes or really deeply criticizes all forms of hypocrisy. So maybe in the report, like we gave the example, so if you won the lottery and then you gave the money to charity, but if your intention was to have the feeling of joy or people would praise you or like you wanted to brag and be bombastic about it, then it's all lost. Which is, again, very similar to the religious texts. How do you see this? Like, is it a shame to be happy? I benefited people both ways. Like, okay, yeah, I did it for goodness sake. Very good. Or I did it for show off. But at the end of the day, the sick people or the poor people or the needy people got what they need. So what difference does it really make here?
Well, again, according to Kant, this is not the reason for the moral that he expects from somebody who would take the path from originating the idea of doing good until it is done completely. For him, this journey has to be done only because you are good in yourself and you are doing good things for the sake of the goodness itself, not for you as a person to get this glory and joy and people around you praise you for that. That's not a practical vision of it as I see it. The practical part is that, yes, let's do the good things regardless of the intention of the person who's doing it, as long as we are helping some people. So giving the money, as in the example you have just showed us now, donating the money for poor people that makes the person who won the lottery happy, I don't really, if I am one of those poor people, I don't care about how he feels. I would rather say, oh, I'm grateful for what he did, regardless of he's happy or not happy. And this is more practical, and this would really go in line with our current life. Mm-hmm. But Kant maybe was too ideal at that time to think that way. Or he wanted to philosophize very deeply the idea of goodness. He wants the idea to come from deep inside and stay deep inside, and it doesn't have to go outside to be seen by everyone. He wants.
So you think he was over philosophizing?
Yes, of course. That would really be a bit, well, if we agree on one thing of what he said earlier, that yes, everybody has to act based on his own goodness, and this own goodness has to be developed and get into an action and then reach the end, that's good. But how we do it, I mean, what the end is, how it affects us and how it reflects on us as well, does not matter really. I like to do something good, let's say, every day. And it doesn't have to be because I am from inside, I want the good to be good. Mm-hmm. To make you happy, Muhammad. Help you with anything. If you, in the morning, if your battery of your car needs a boost, I will come and boost it for you. You will thank me. I will be happy that I helped you. Of course, I will be happy if I helped you. But I don't have to leave you grumpy face that the happiness is done because the end was good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I know it is a little bit, Kant himself was a little bit sophisticated in that matter. To draw a line here between how the end of the deed affect us is very, very vague here. Yes, we are doing good because we are human beings, but it doesn't have to be just for goodness only. No, I'm doing for my friend Muhammad as well.
I see what you're saying here, and maybe the final question, but it's really a pivotal one and a very important one, would be: what does it take for humanity to really take this major leap and realize the importance of ethics per se and the importance of values per se? So it's not the carrot and the stick, because humans so far have been working on the basis of the carrot and the stick. So if you do the good, you'll get the reward. If you don't do it, you will be punished. But very rarely and very few people do goodness because for goodness itself, or at least, or most important actually, for self-actualization, to feel that I respect myself. I've realized myself. I have my self-worth. As a human, as a civilized being, I should not do the wrong thing, period. Regardless of this tick, I'm not afraid of this tick, and I'm not, ambitious or craving the carrot, really. What does it take, in your opinion?
Okay, so actually, while you were saying this fact now, an example jumped to my mind, which I would like to share with you that might help us to answer your inquiry. We know that there are so many organizations, not-for-profit organizations, they call for people to help them to sponsor kids all over the world.
Yeah.
And let's say you and I were doing it. We are sponsoring some kids in Africa, in East India, wherever it's needed for support. I go and brag about it to everybody. I would say, oh, by the way, I support these kids in Africa. I pay this amount of money every day, every month. And people would say, oh, look at him. He's acting like this. He wants to show off. Some people say, oh, good, bravo, and they will cheer for me. Someone like you would never talk about it to anybody. And that's exactly what Kant was doing. He wants someone like Muhammad, that he doesn't go around and tell people that he's doing good. And he detests the reason or the way that Imad is doing it. But back again to so here is that both those two people are doing something good at the end, regardless. So that's part of what I'm going to answer now, the question. So yeah. I'm saying that the good and bad in the world has to stay like this. It's like a balance of the nature. It's nature of human being.
Okay.
So if Mr. Immanuel Kant wants everybody to be good, then I'm sorry, that's not possible. Yet we cannot be all bad. So it's a balance. We all know that even religions were based on this eternal fact. It's the yin and yang, as you said earlier. It's day and night. It's the north and south. It's many things and it's opposite. And it is Seth and Horus, which was the first initiation of religion in the history of mankind.
Yeah, so...
Osiris and Thes, both were brothers. And Osiris was the good brother, the good son, and Thes was the bad one, and the bad killed the good because he was jealous. The history that we all know about it, which was created again in Cain and Abel, and created in so many literature and so many ideologies and religions.
So the contrast, you always need the other side to make
contrast.
A contrast. You always be in for
and
the
this contrast will make the balance.
For the vice.
The contrast makes balance.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot justify bad deeds to say that we need it for the balance, but also I cannot say that we can have everything good.
Okay.
And the reason for this, we can always go deeply in the psychology of human beings. Yes, you and I, we are different, and so on and so on. People are different. People have needs. People have desires. People have greed. And the level of the greed and desire differs from one person to another. So in practical life, in practical world, Kant's theory is great on paper and great to learn about it and try to make it come true one day. But I cannot use it nowadays because around us we are seeing lots of bad deeds going on.
And as humans, we cannot really become one of the archetypes of angels or demons. We're neither really. Like we're not angels, we're not demons. We have both. Like we
don't forget that angels also had one bad one. One of them went bad.
Yeah, the morning star.
Yes. So again, and that is actually the symbolized very clearly in the yin and yang, where the half of the universe is white with a black dot in it, and the dark half has still some goodness in it.
Yes. Yeah.
We cannot lose hope that the whole world is, even the half the world is dark, still in it some hope, white hope. And don't be so happy with the other white half, because still some darkness in it as well.
Absolutely. And with this note, I really have to thank you very much for being with us today, as always. And it's always a pleasure to have you time. And again, really looking forward to having you with us very soon. So, Ahmad Bersoum, thank you very much for your very valuable or really invaluable input. Thank you very much again for being with us.
Thank you, Mohammed, always for your this kind invitations to your very interesting and amazing show. And also thank you to all your viewers and followers online. And I'm looking forward to see you again and discuss another tribute of life.
It will definitely be a pleasure.
Thank you, Muhammad.
And dear viewers, if we were to conclude here, at the end of the day, whether you believe in a God, you don't, you are religious, you're non-religious, you're a deist, you're an atheist, you're Gnostic, agnostic, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, you're living on earth right now. What will happen in the afterlife is according to your belief, if you believe in an afterlife. But, you know, humans tend to believe that they are the most superior creatures living on this planet. And definitely we were not superior because of our physical might, no, but because of our logic and our mind and the use of our heads. So our mind and the mind is in the very top of our head. So it is at the apex, it's at the very peak of our, brains and our bodies, basically. So the brain or the mind should be the leader. And I would say that doing the right should be the right mentally, regardless of, let's put aside, belief or disbelief, but isn't it right for the betterment of human beings, yourself included, to do, what is called ethical or moral? This is something for us to really consider and to really wonder about. And, you should, it would be a big shame, actually, for us to keep acting out of fear from a stick or out of crave towards a carrot. So basically, if we just afraid of the stick and we look forward for a carrot, we are pets. This is what you do to your pet. If the pet does a good job, you give him some, some food, depending on the kind of the pet. And if they don't do a good job, you hit them with a stick. So are we pets? Do we like to see ourselves as pets? I don't think so. So I think it's about time that we act up as human beings and, become really the leaders of this planet. If we deserve that, we should earn it. And by doing what is right out of self-worth and self-dignity and respect. Dear viewers, until we meet again, I hope you have a very pleasant time. Please take good care.